The shift is done. Not the announcement you were waiting for, not the headline that would flash across every screen, but the structural, foundational, irreversible shift that makes every future announcement possible. For years, the Dinar community has been waiting for a moment, a date, a single event that would change everything. That waiting is now obsolete. The work has been done. The question is no longer what is happening, but what comes next. Let me take you inside the evidence that proves the shift is complete. On February 10th, Central Bank Governor Ali Al-Awlaq sat down with Ruda and Erbil and delivered what is, without question, the most important monetary policy statement of the year. To the casual observer, it sounded like bad news. Al-Awlaq stated flatly that the central bank is not studying the topic of changing the exchange rate. He called market speculation great confusion and misplaced. He dismissed any link between the budget deficit and currency adjustment as an incorrect link. But you must learn to read what central bankers do not say. Al-Awlaq did not say the rate is fixed forever. He did not say the rate reflects the true value of the currency. He said the central bank is not currently studying a change. That is a statement about the present, not the future. And more importantly, he spent the rest of that interview describing, in extraordinary detail, exactly what the central bank has already done. And what they have done is complete the foundational work for a fundamentally different currency. Let me give you the numbers that prove the shift is done. Al-Awlaq revealed that Iraq's foreign reserves now exceed $100 billion, including more than 76 tons of gold. The money supply stands at approximately 100 trillion dinars. But here is the number that reveals the scale of what has been accomplished. More than 80% of that money supply exists outside the banking system. 80%. Trillions of dinars circulating in the shadow economy, invisible to tax authorities, unavailable for productive lending, and entirely beyond the reach of monetary policy. For years, this was the problem that seemed unsolvable. But Al-Awlaq identified the cause with remarkable clarity, primarily linked to the phenomenon of tax evasion and non-disclosure of revenue levels, profits and income that are achieved, especially in the trade sector. The shift that is now done is the shift from ignoring this problem to systematically solving it. Al-Awlaq explained the mechanism with unusual clarity. If money owners feel reassured about the existence of a fair and transparent tax system, they will bring their money and deposit it in banks. Reassurance. That is the product that the central bank and the government have been manufacturing. And the manufacturing process is now complete. Consider the customs front. On February 8th, hundreds of traders and customs clearance company owners protested in central Baghdad. They gathered outside the General Customs Directorate, chanting slogans against corruption and rejecting new fees. They shut down markets across the capital. They hung banners reading customs fees are killing citizens. The new tariffs that triggered these protests range from 5% to 30%. Traders report that container fees have jumped from around 3 million dinars to as much as 14 million. Infant milk fees rose from about 495,000 dinars to nearly 3 million. To the casual observer, this looks like a policy failure. But listen to what the protesters are not saying. They are not demanding the accumulation system be improved. They are not asking for better implementation. They are demanding the system be cancelled entirely. They are demanding a return to the old way, the way where goods could be undervalued, duties evaded, and dollars siphoned out of the country. Al-Awlaq addressed this directly in his interview. He said the government's position is clear: applying the tariff, applying the accumulation system, and applying the advanced customs declaration. The government is proceeding with it. He called the measures beneficial beyond fiscal gains. This is what a completed shift looks like. The government is not backing down. The accumulation system, which provides accurate, real-time information, eliminates estimation and human interference, and contributes to combating money laundering, is being implemented despite the protests. The old system is dead. The new system is operational. The shift is done. Now, let me give you the external dimension that confirms the shift is irreversible. Since November, Iraqi banks have had to comply with SWIFT international transfer system criteria to access their foreign reserves held at the U.S. Federal Reserve. Musar Saleh, a financial advisor to Prime Minister Soudani, explained that Iraqi banks must now register their dollar transfers on an online platform that reviews every request. The Federal Reserve examines these requests, and if there are any suspicions about the final destination, it stops the transfer. Since this mechanism was adopted, the U.S. Federal Reserve has blocked about 80% of transfer requests due to doubts over where the money was actually going. 80%. That is not the United States weaponizing the dollar against Iraq. That is the United States finally enforcing long-standing anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing provisions that previous Iraqi governments were too weak, too corrupt, or too complicit to enforce themselves. Economist Ahmed Tabakali put it plainly, contrary to current misconceptions, rumors, and misinformation, there is no evidence of U.S. pressure on Iraq. The new regulations require high levels of disclosure and transparency. This came as a shock for many of our banks who were not used to this. Soudani's government is not fighting the new regulations, it is embracing them. It is using them as cover to do what previous governments lacked the political capital to do: clean up the banking sector, force compliance with international standards, and starve the parallel economy of the dollars that sustained it. The shift is done. And on February 5th, Governor-elect met with U.S. Chargé d'Affaires Joshua Harris in Baghdad. They discussed dollar sales, banking reforms, and ongoing cooperation aimed at strengthening Iraq's financial and monetary stability. Harris affirmed the United States' full readiness to continue supporting the efforts of the Central Bank of Iraq, enabling it to achieve its goals in enhancing financial and monetary stability. The international community has certified the shift. The shift is done. Now, let me give you the market reality as of today, February 15th. The official central bank rate stands at 1,320 dinars to the dollar. On the streets of Baghdad, at the Al-Khaifa and Al-Harithiya exchanges, the dollar opened Sunday trading lower, hovering around 150,700 dinars per $100, down from the previous session's 151,250 dinars. In Erbil, selling prices stood at 150,700 dinars and buying prices at 150,600 dinars. The gap between the official rate and the parallel market is narrowing, not because the official rate changed, but because the parallel market is slowly, painfully, inevitably being strangled. Alak described the currency fluctuation as a temporary situation. The cabinet has decided to oblige all state bodies to sell goods and services in Iraq in dinars at the central bank's exchange rate of 1,320 to the dollar. The government is using its immense purchasing power to reinforce the official rate. The shift is done. So, what comes next? Alak explained it perfectly. If money owners feel reassured about the existence of a fair and transparent tax system, they will bring their money and deposit it in banks. What comes next is reassurance becoming reality. What comes next is the shadow economy becoming the formal economy. What comes next is the 80% becoming the 100%. When that happens, when the 80% starts flowing into banks, that inflow of deposits will expand the lending capacity of the banking system. That expanded lending will fuel investment and consumption. That investment and consumption will drive economic growth, and that economic growth will be the fundamental foundation for a stronger currency. What comes next is not an announcement. What comes next is a process. The exchange rate will change when the infrastructure is ready. The revaluation will come when the parallel economy is integrated. The dinar will rise when the system that suppressed it has been dismantled. Alak was honest about the timing. When asked about changing the exchange rate, He said such a decision would only be considered if Iraq faced an inability to meet demand for foreign currency due to weak reserves. And he explicitly stated that this is not the case at the present time. Not the case at the present time. But the present time is not the future. The present time is the foundation. The present time is the completion. The present time is the shift being done. What comes next is already visible in the data. The dollar edged lower in Baghdad and Erbil this morning. The protests continue, but the government does not back down. The Federal Reserve blocks continue, but the banks are adapting. The customs system is operational. The digital platforms are launching. The reserves are strong. The gold is accumulating. What comes next is the gradual, inevitable, irreversible movement toward a single exchange rate, not a rate that is announced, but a rate that emerges from the reality of a transformed economy. Not a rate that is imposed, but the rate that is discovered as the shadow economy collapses into the light. The traders protesting in Baghdad are not evidence that the shift has failed. They are evidence that the shift has succeeded. The 80% of currency outside banks is not evidence that the economy is weak. It is evidence of the fuel that will power what comes next. The parallel market rate is not evidence of a collapsing currency. It is the last gasp of a dying system. The shift is done. The work of building the infrastructure, implementing the reforms, enforcing the compliance, and strangling the shadow economy is complete. The Asacuta system is active. The swift compliance is mandatory. The Federal Reserve blocks are real. The digital platforms are launching. The political will is holding. What comes next is the flow. What comes next is the 80% moving into the banks. What comes next is the lending, the investment, the growth, and finally, the currency that reflects the nation it actually represents. The shift is done. The waiting is over. What comes next is already beginning. The question is whether you are ready for it.